heart of Texas, LifeTalk. Here's your host, Mark Crutcher.
Hello and welcome to LifeTalk for January 2012. I'm Mark Crutcher, and lurking nearby are Cherie Johnson and Johnny Hunter. Unfortunately, Troy Newman was caught in the blizzard that hit Kansas last night, and he couldn't make it in. The good news is that our friend Stephen Broden was available to take his place. Also, again this month, Father Frank and Janet will not be here, but we're going to have a special surprise for you in just a few minutes. But first, it's time for Alan Ackles with this month's LifeTalk News. Alan?
All right, thank you, Mark. A Michigan pro-life group has begun an international watchdog organization to monitor pro-abortion speakers at Catholic institutions. David Thiessen, founder of Operation Sacred Soil, told LifeTalk News that the mission of the organization is to stop pro-abortion supporters from speaking at facilities affiliated with the Catholic Church. The new organization has already been able to stop radically pro-abortion Michigan State Senator Gary Peters from speaking at a Catholic parish. Thiessen says that Operation Sacred Soil will rely on local pro-lifers to contact them whenever a pro-abortion speaker is scheduled to appear at any Catholic institution. In Kansas City, an abortion clinic manager who was accused of assaulting a pro-life activist will go to trial. Marianne Souse says she was putting away her protest signs when Aid for Women abortion clinic manager Mark Peterson came up to her car taking pictures of her license plate. He then grabbed her arms, wrestling her to the ground in what one witness described as a body slam. A second witness heard her screams for help and called police. Souse believes Peterson should face a felony aggravated assault charge because he had a weapon with him. Peterson denies that allegation, admitting only that he does have a permit to carry a gun. Well, under the current charges, he faces a year in jail if convicted. After Joseph Mike Devia enlisted in the U.S. Navy, he ordered his 19-year-old girlfriend to have an abortion. When she refused, law enforcement investigators say that Devia stabbed her 20 times, causing her death. He was subsequently arrested in Chicago and now awaits extradition back to Houston, where he will stand trial for capital murder. Police were able to charge Devia based on DNA evidence as well as messages left on the victim's cell phone. Well, in a victory for pro-lifers in North Carolina, the city of Jacksonville has agreed to a preliminary injunction that allows prayer and demonstration at the city's only abortion clinic. Claiming that a vehicle might jump the curb and hurt pro-life protesters, Jacksonville police had stopped vigils in front of the Christ Clinic for Women. Peter Breen of the Thomas More Society is representing the pro-lifers, and he successfully argued that the injunction was nothing more than a far-fetched excuse to stop the demonstrations. The abortion clinic owner has threatened to file suit over the injunction, but Breen assures the pro-lifers that the Thomas More Society will be ready to defend them again if needed. We're nearly a year after a Pennsylvania grand jury described a Philadelphia abortion clinic as, quote, house of horrors, unquote. Governor Tom Corbett is expected to sign new regulations that will require the State Department of Health hold abortion facilities to the same standards as other outpatient surgical facilities. Supporters said the bill will protect women and ensure the state maintains high standards for abortion in the aftermath of the conditions that shut down the abortion clinic run by Kermit Gosnell. Gosnell has been charged with the murder of a patient who died from a botched abortion, and 6 former employees have pled guilty to murders of late-term babies born alive and then killed with scissors. In Albany, New York, Upper Hudson Planned Parenthood recruits teenagers, including minors, as peer educators for its taxpayer-funded STARS program. The program pays its recruits $75 every other week to promote the abortion chain to their friends. Now it has been discovered that children applying for these positions must also be willing to attend a local gay pride event which features transsexuals and barely dressed men. Members who join get a goodie bag filled with male and female condoms, dental dams, lube, and instructions for the use of these items. Well, in the growing catalog of problems for Planned Parenthood, several of its Washington state facilities have been closed due to cutbacks in state funding. This includes operations in Forks, Oak Harbor, and Silverdale. Planned Parenthood has also announced that it will downsize its operations in Sitka, Alaska. Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood is also closing its facility near Penn State University, and in Michigan, the Department of Community Health has canceled a $200,000 grant that was originally intended to help Planned Parenthood build a 17,000-square-foot abortion mill in Auburn Hills. And in Illinois, the Dimensions Medical Center abortion facility in Des Plaines has closed. Dimensions was one of 7 Chicago-area abortion facilities owned by the notorious abortionist Vinod Goyal. The death camp was picketed regularly by a group of pro-life activists headed by Pro-Life Action League the Pro-Life Action League. According to the league's founder, Joe Scheidler, pro-lifers recently did a Jericho march around the facility and marked it for a 40 Days for Life prayer event. Dimensions is one of 7 abortion clinics owned by Goyal, and pro-lifers vow to close the remaining 6. And finally, Georgia abortionist Tyrone Cecil Malloy and his office manager, Kathy Ann Edwards, Warner, have been arrested on charges that he took in more than $380,000 in payments for ultrasounds that were never done. The indictment also charges that the Georgia Medicaid program was illegally billed approximately $131,000 for new patient visits when in reality the visits were for elective abortions that are not covered under the program. Each count of Medicaid fraud is punishable by 1 to 10 years in prison and a fine of $10,000. Alan Ackles here for LifeTalk News. You can get daily news updates by logging on to ProLifeAmerica.com. There you go, Mark. Back to you, buddy.
Thanks, Alan. Well, lots of good news. Abortion mills continue to close down, and
That's very good news.
Lots more of them are right on the edge of closing down. I want to thank you for coming up here on short notice. Troy called me literally from a ditch yesterday. He was he got 8 miles from his house in the ice storm and wound up in the ditch, and he called me crying like a little girl. So,
my pleasure. I hope to fill in very good for him.
You did a great job for Johnny when he was gone. And matter of fact,
They almost didn't bring me back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, thanks for being with us. As I told you before the news, I've got a special treat for you this month. Joining us now from Amarillo, Texas, is our good friend, Father Frank Pavone. Hello, Father Frank.
Hey, Mark. Good to be with you and with all my friends there on the set.
Well, we are so happy to have you. The only thing that would be better is if you were actually here with us taping your segment.
That's going to happen before long, that's for sure.
Well, we're all keep praying for that, and we miss you a lot, and we miss Janet, and we know you're going to be back soon. But I just wanted to bring you on so people can hear your voice and let you kind of update us with what you can tell us about what's going on with you and what's going on with Priests for Life.
Well, exactly, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. I love our LifeTalk audience and have met so many of them, of course, in the course of my travels, and I look forward to continue to do that. But brothers and sisters, all of you who watch LifeTalk, let me first of all assure you that I'm doing fine. I am thriving on not only on your prayers and the grace of God that we all enjoy, but also on the work for pro-life that I continue to do right from here. I have my position as head of Priests for Life and the other ministries that I direct, and even though I'm limited for the moment in my travels, I've been fully engaged in this work and in communication with all of my pastoral team, who many of you know, Janet, of course, Alveda King, the Burks, Brian Kemper, who now directs our youth outreach, and so many others, and in touch with so many of you. And for that, I just want to say a big thank you, because so many of you have continue to be in contact with us, involved in our Priests for Life activities, and contacting me directly, whether you're a follower on Twitter or a fan on Facebook, or the many different ways that you communicate with me. I take a great amount of encouragement from that, hearing about your own pro-life activities, your successes, your obstacles. This is what I thrive on, because, Mark, as you and our other colleagues there on the set with you, we all know what it means when the iron door closes behind us, and we know that our life is dedicated to the lives of the unborn. We know what that means, and we know how we thrive on giving ourselves away for them. That's our strength. That continues to be my strength and my joy, and I want to thank everybody for continuing to reaffirm me in that by your own example and by the fellowship that we all have in this great movement.
Well, I want to tell you, reassure you, and I think you already know this, but I think I speak for everyone here and everyone that's listening. Our affection for you has not diminished in one iota. I mean, and we're still praying for you, and we're going to do whatever we can do, whatever little it might be, to make sure that this thing is resolved as quickly as possible, so that you can get back to doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And so I know it may seem like sometimes when you're out there that you may get lonely and feel like you've been abandoned, but I want to make sure you understand that that is simply not the case.
Well, and I really do feel that support, and I know that again our entire LifeTalk audience is with us, and I don't want them to think that I'm inaccessible. You know, I'm constantly giving updates both on our Priest for Life website and on the social media networks, and I want people to feel like they can contact me directly in the same way that they always have in the past through all of our Priest for Life channels. I am fully accessible, and like you said, look forward to getting this thing resolved soon and getting back on the road where I need to be.
Absolutely. Well, I know you have things to get on, and I appreciate your taking this time out to come on and visit with us, and we look forward to having you back on the show next month.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks to all the rest of you, and thanks to our LifeTalk audience.
Well, thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Absolutely great, to hear at least just to hear his voice, and people know, yeah, he's still alive, and he's hanging in there. So, I want to take a few minutes and address some important points and maybe clear up a few misunderstandings about this situation with Father Frank. I'll start by reading a short statement from Father David Dybel, who is the canonical advisor to Priest for Life. Quote, Father Frank remains a priest in good standing with the Church. In fact, he is currently on assignment in the Diocese of Amarillo as a chaplain to a group of sisters in the diocese where he exercises his priestly ministry with the full approval of his bishop. In addition, he continues his pro-life ministry as he has done for many years. He has not been accused of any wrongdoing or fiscal misconduct. Priest for Life remains an association of the faithful within the understanding of the Church's discipline. The appeal to a higher church authority on behalf of Father Frank and Priest for Life is an exercise of the rights of Father Pavone and the association within the church law, and is no way dismissive or rebellious to the authority of the bishop. Rather, Father Frank remains obedient to his bishop in carrying out his assignment in Amarillo. The pastoral team and board of directors of Priest for Life unanimously support Father Frank's leadership, as well as the plans and programs in place for the coming year. Finally, Priest for Life continues to enjoy support of church leaders, including 2 cardinals, 20 bishops of the advisory board, and the pro-life community at large. Father David Dybel. The point of Father Dybel's statement is that contrary to what some people seem to think, Father Frank has not been suspended, and he is not operating in defiance of either his bishop or the church. And I would also like to add just a couple of comments of my own. This situation developed on September 13th when Bishop Zurich ordered Father Frank to report to the Amarillo Diocese. And yet all these months later, the bishop has still not approved a third-party mediator. Father Frank has patiently waited for this to happen so that face-to-face meetings can be held. But for some unexplained reason, Bishop Zurich has ignored this issue, and because of that, there have been no discussions between him and Father Frank since this ordeal began. It should also be noted that Bishop Zurich says that he ordered Father Frank to Amarillo because of concerns about the financial management of Priest for Life. However, despite acknowledging the receipt of the organization's complete financial records, he has never indicated what those concerns are. This has left Father Frank in the untenable position of having to defend himself against wrongdoing without knowing what the wrongdoing is. Bishop Zurich has openly stated that he wants this to be a time of reflection for Father Frank while refusing to tell him what he's supposed to be reflecting about. I'll tell you, to put it bluntly, I think we are way beyond the point where Bishop Zurich needs to detail the specific allegations he is making. Another rumor that needs to be put to rest is that Father Frank is considering leaving the priesthood. I've visited with Father Frank many times since this thing began, and I can tell you, this is nonsense. Father Frank is happy being a priest, and he sees absolutely no conflict between his lifelong commitment to the Catholic Church and his lifelong commitment to the protection of the unborn. Finally, I think it needs to be pointed out that Father Frank's duties in the Amarillo Diocese do not really take much time out of his day. The remainder of his time and energy is still being spent in the defense of the unborn. This is a commitment he has been fulfilling for the last 24 years, and I can assure you he will continue to do so. He is unbowed, uncompromised, and he remains convinced that this situation will be resolved within the structure of the Catholic Church. In the meantime, it is crucial for those who financially and prayerfully support Father Frank and Priest for Life to continue doing so. This is no time to back off or lose confidence. Instead, each of us needs to make it clear that we will not sit idly by and let the largest pro-life ministry in the Catholic Church be destroyed. The stakes are simply too high for that to happen. Anyway, there are other things going on in the pro-life movement. Lots of them, as a matter of fact.
Good and bad?
Good and bad. And it's always a mixed bag. It's one step forward, one step back, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back and all that. Texas recently decided not to fund Planned Parenthood anymore. Now the Obama administration is saying that they can't do that That Texas must fund Planned Parenthood.
Can they do that? Can they say that?
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. This is a typical conservative versus liberal spin on government. They're saying that they will take away funding from Texas altogether if they don't use some of that funding for Planned Parenthood. Now, I want you to think about what's going on here, because this goes to the fundamental tenets between liberalism and conservatism. The federal government takes money out of the pocketbooks of people of the state of Texas, right? Right. In every check. They take that money to Washington, D.C. Then they say, oh, by the way, we'll give you your own money back if you'll spend it the way we want you to spend it. Mm. This is why you don't send money to Washington, D.C., because these people will extort you with your own money. They'll blackmail you with your own money. And that's what's being done here. For them to say, we're going to take this money out, put it in this program in Washington, D.C., send it back to you in the state of Texas, and you can only spend it the way we say you can spend it, is an outrage. But this is exactly what's going on.
And what's Texas doing to stop it?
Well, they've got 90 days. They can decide what they're going to do, and I don't know what they can do. I mean,
well, the Attorney General can certainly file a lawsuit on that.
Right.
And challenge the whole notion that all of their monies are tied to one particular program, and that's not fair, and it's not right, and I think that needs to go to the court. Mm-hmm. This simply the Attorney General needs to take it and challenge it in the courthouse. But that's incredible. That's a hammer to make or to force a social engineering upon this state, and that's in conflict with the principles of the Constitution and the 10th Amendment.
Right, it is. But
it's a different way of seeing the fight. In North Carolina, Planned Parenthood was defunded. We are being sued by the ACLU. To me, that makes sense because the ACLU sues you for anything, if especially if it has to do with abortion and you're on the wrong side of the issue. It's real trouble when the government is stepping in. Texas has a bigger fight than North Carolina right now. And I really hope Texas can pull this off. Mm-hmm. Because if not, our entire nation is in trouble more than people know it is.
Right. And it's little things like this that get in the 15th page of the second section of the newspaper and nobody really pays much attention to. Exactly. They don't pay attention to them until all of a sudden it's so big you can't stop it. And that's the problem that you have here. I mean, all you got to have is either the state of Texas either not file a suit or file a suit and some federal judge somewhere knock it down or whatever, and then the Obama administration can then require that all these states not only fund Planned Parenthood, but pay for elective abortions. They could do that very easily.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
if they're tying it to the money.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. That's been a tactic that's been used by the federal government on many issues.
Oh, yeah, right.
So it needs to be challenged, and I think we have the kind of leadership in Austin that will challenge that.
Now, another scary thing that's happened, and I know, Stephan, you've been involved in this, is the Defense Authorization Act, which allows the federal government to just unilaterally classify someone as a terrorist. They don't have to necessarily have committed any overt act. They don't have to have been charged with anything, been convicted of anything.
Let me guess who's at the top of the list.
Well, they're claiming, of course, this is national security, and we're going to go after the terrorist who might try to bomb us. But they've already started assigning this terrorist label to pro-lifers who've been convicted or done.
Sure, the Homeland Security,
right.
is her name Napolitano?
Right.
She has identified Christians and pro-lifers as potential terrorists.
Right.
But this National Defense Authorization Act is a violation of our 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th Amendment of the Constitution.
Yep.
It eliminates habeas corpus, that we don't have a right to free trial, and they can hold us indefinitely in jail until they determine that we are a terrorist or not.
Yep.
And that could be a long time.
Long time.
Who's
well,
fighting that?
1
Anybody
minute
fighting
under those conditions in jail would be a long time.
No, it's already passed the Senate.
Right.
And it's up for approval. I think it's gone back down to the House, and there may be some reconciliation. We're hoping that the Tea Party representatives in the House will challenge that language. That language was added to the NDAA by Carl Levitt of Michigan and John McCain of Arizona. Added that language at the request of Barack Obama's administration.
Well,
so we're looking at soft tyranny evolving into hard tyranny in America today through the violation of our Constitution. This is serious business, and I think we need to be alert to this fact. We need to be engaged to communicate with our representatives and our senators that this is unacceptable. But most Americans are sleeping through this process.
Yep, and Rand Paul, who is an opponent of this and has spoken out pretty strongly about it, this is a statement he made. He's gone through the laws and how this new law would affect the American people. Quote, "There are laws on the books that now characterize who might be a terrorist." Here they are, ready? "Someone missing fingers on their hands is a suspected terrorist, according to the Department of Justice. Someone who has guns, someone who has ammunition that is waterproofed, someone who has more than 7 days of food in their house is eligible to be considered a potential terrorist."
You are kidding me.
No.
When Napolitano came up with these definitions for Homeland Security, I wrote and put up on the Black Pro-Life blog an article titled "Labeled to Intimidate." They intimidated, they labeled the veterans coming home from wars, they labeled Christians, pro-lifers, all of that. And it was all designed to intimidate us. And I went to a pro-life organization in Washington, D.C. that Johnny, you brought me to that organization and said, look, we need to respond to this, and we need to respond now in the same way that the veterans responded. If you remember, the veterans were very upset with that labeling. And they went out into the media and challenged it, and Janet Napolitano backed off that definition. But the Christians and the pro-lifers never said a word, and they allowed that definition to go forward. That's very dangerous.
Is this anything like RICO? Because they labeled us under
they
that.
just out lied about RICO. They're making their intentions very clear right here to me. This is not subterfuge here. RICO was a situation where they took laws that were put on the books to go after organized crime and perverted them to go after Joe Scheidler and other innocent pro-lifers who've not been convicted of anything. So that was a perversion. But they're open about this. If this is allowed to go forward, we got nobody to blame.
Well, it's on its way to the president's desk.
Right. And you know he'll sign it.
He's going to sign it.
You know he'll sign it. Speaking of that, there's now more and more people coming out talking about something that we talked about here on LifeTalk several months ago, and that was the Obama administration's use of federal tax dollars to push for the legalization of abortion in Kenya. And you remember they had those big riots over there where the government killed, I don't remember the numbers now, but it was killed a bunch of pro-life, anti-abortion protesters. The Kenyan people, the polls all showed they did not want abortion being legalized. But the Obama administration used federal tax dollars, which is clearly illegal. It's black letter law. You cannot use federal tax dollars to influence another country to legalize abortion, and yet they did it. And now more and more people are starting to come forward saying that that's exactly what happens. And they're continuing this push over there now. Now they're calling the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, which is who the Obama administration worked with to do this, is calling for all medical students in Kenya to be required to participate in abortions in order to get a medical license. And this is being supported by the Obama administration. So,
Mark, it is so bad that I have some cousins who are lifetime missionaries in Kenya who had to leave the country because of their pro-life position. Right. That's how bad it is. They are cracking down on anybody over there that's against abortion.
And all you got to do is watch My Alpha 21, and you'll see the exact reason why they're doing this.
It's incredible. Not only that type of thing is happening, but also the Obama administration is also putting pressure on other countries and nations around the world to support and put policy in place to support the lesbian, gay, and bisexual, transgender,
Right.
For they call it human rights laws.
Right.
They put them under, and Hillary Clinton just did a major announcement on this last week.
Well, we got a lot of things we couldn't get to. The Father Frank situation took time out of this segment. But one last thing I want to bring up, so that people aren't deceived about something that just happened. Radical, godless pro-abort Kathleen Sebelius, who's the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, just issued a thing saying that the morning after pill could not be sold to minor girls over the counter. And Obama then comes out and says, oh, yes, we have to protect these girls and we can't be doing this. And I even heard some conservative Christian pro-lifers saying, well, at least they did this. This is a good thing this is a scam. The problem is not Plan B being sold to minor girls. The problem is Plan B being sold over the counter to the men who are raping these minor girls. And they are doing nothing to prevent that. So, yeah, if you're one of the, as we talked about in our child predator report, and we're doing a lot of additional research on that right now, if you're one of these men who's 40, 50 years old having sex with a little 12 or 13-year-old girl, it's no big deal to you that she's not able to go in and buy the pills as long as you're able to go in and buy them. And that's what's happening right now. So this is a scam. This thing that Sebelius and Obama pulled right here, trying to make it appear like they're reasonable, good Christian people and trying to do the right thing for these girls.
But initially, they were going to make it available on the counter, that anyone could walk into the store and buy it.
They
just
can,
openly.
unless if they're an adult male.
Right. So that's still the case.
That's still the case.
Okay.
So this did nothing to protect these girls. They're acting like this is going to protect girls from pedophiles. No, the pedophiles will still be able to buy it. And this is why we were saying originally, you should not be allowed to sell this stuff over the counter to anybody. Right. Because this is a pedophile protection pill. That's what these things are.
I have not heard that point of view in the media at all.
And you're not going to.
Is there an age limit? You have to be 18 to buy it over the counter? Is that
17.
what they're trying to do? 17. Okay.
17. That does nothing for the 12-year-old girl who's being raped by a 40-year-old guy.
And not only that, is sometimes if you've been at an abortion clinic, you will notice that sometimes it's a mother or somebody embarrassed by the child's pregnancy that's bringing her there in the first place. Right. Was to keep even a parent from just jumping in and just buying it for them.
And people need to understand how large this problem is. In the United States right now, among the youngest girls who get pregnant, girls between the ages of 10 and 15, just that segment of girls, the youngest, 60 to 80% are impregnated by adults, not by other boys near their own age. 60 to 80% of them. The conservative figures are 60%. The liberal figures are 80%. 60 to 80% are impregnated by adults.
10 to 15 years old.
Between 10 and 15 years old. The teenage pregnancy rate in this country, the epidemic of teenage pregnancy in this country, is being driven by statutory rape. And the abortion industry is the main culprit here. They're the ones who are supporting this, and this is a perfect example of it. So I'm just trying to make sure people understand that, in the pro-life movement especially, do not be deceived by these people trying to make it appear that they're reasonable in keeping these girls from buying these pills. It doesn't keep the men who are raping them from buying them, and that's the problem.
The philosophy behind all of this is depopulation.
Absolutely.
Behind the whole movement is depopulation.
Exactly.
And it's interesting you use the word deception, because that's exactly where we are. I believe we're in a time of great deception in our nation. It was the Apostle Paul in Colossians chapter 2, verse 8 says this, "See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the traditions of men and the elementary principles of the world, rather than of Jesus Christ." And we in America, we're being deceived at every level.
Absolutely.
Every level. And if we're not grounded and rooted in the Word of God and processing our experiences, our interactions with our society through the grid of our faith, we're in deep trouble. We're struggling in the pro-life movement. Can you imagine the heathen out there that doesn't have the faith at all?
Right, exactly.
Totally deceived.
It's scary. We'll be right back. When we characterize abortion as murder, there is often a vicious reaction from the people who defend or commit these atrocities. They will angrily inform us that the word murder is a legal definition that refers to an illegal act, and since abortion is legal, it can't be murder. From a strictly technical standpoint, they may be right. But when people confront you over this, ask them whether they have a problem with referring to Adolf Hitler as a murderer. After all, the Nazi concentration camps and the millions of executions that went on inside them were legal according to the laws that existed in Germany at that time. So the question is, do they object to Adolf Hitler being called a murderer on the basis that these killings were legal? When asking this question, it should also be pointed out that there is no proof Hitler ever personally killed anyone. He simply created, implemented, and defended a system that caused millions of people to be killed. In reality, Hitler was a political leader whose relationship to the German Holocaust was about the same as any pro-choice politician's relationship to the American Holocaust. In both cases, the politician's job is not to carry out the killings, but to make certain that it is legal for others to carry them out. So again, are they murderers? From our perspective, the important thing is not that the pro-choice mob doesn't like these comparisons. The important thing is why they don't like them. And the fact is, they don't fly into a rage at being called murderers or being compared to Nazis because they think these analogies are unfounded. To the contrary, they do it because they are increasingly fearful that such analogies are not only appropriate, but that the public is starting to recognize it. They also sense that this may be at least partially responsible for the recent dramatic shift in public opinion away from the pro-choice position in favor of the pro-life position. So never take their protest against your rhetoric as a signal to back down. Instead, see them as proof that you are hitting a nerve. Remember this, our enemies are not condemned by our words, but by their own actions. In the final analysis, if they don't want to be likened to Nazis, all they have to do is stop behaving like Nazis. Welcome back. Well, you know, our previous segment, we talked about a lot of negatives and things that are going on, but there is a lot of positive things that are happening out there, and people are still...
Please tell us.
And, you know, every month we talk about all this, you know, abortion mills are closing, the polls are going our way. The greatest thing is the young people in this country are the most pro-life segment of the society now. It's the older people that are the most pro-aborts, and they're dying off. So they're not going to live forever, and they're being replaced by people who are adamantly pro-life. And I'll tell you something that I don't think is talked about enough in that issue of why the youth are pro-life. I think technology plays a big role in that. Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids now have sonograms of themselves. Mm-hmm. You got a kid who's got a sonogram of himself that he can go home, it's probably on a VHS tape for that age group. He can plug a VHS tape into a television monitor and watch himself before he was born. It's pretty hard to convince him that he was just a glob of tissue or whatever.
He knows he's not a glob.
And the other thing is, among these kids, not kids, but they're kids compared to all of us here. Yeah, particularly me. But among this group, say, that are below the age of 30, they're all abortion survivors. Mm-hmm. And they have seen what it has done to their generation. You know, I think I mentioned one time before when we were talking about this years ago when Zentra was on the show. She said she was sitting around her when she was in high school even. She sat around her classroom and she noticed empty chairs sitting there. And you always have some empty chairs in a high school classroom, right? But she said, I'd look at those chairs and wonder who was supposed to be sitting there. Mm-hmm. You know, was my husband supposed to be sitting there? Was my future, you know, boyfriend, whatever? Who's missing out of my generation? Well, see, none of us experienced that. We didn't live in that time.
And I've prayed for my sons before birth, and then I got to praying for my daughters-in-law, and then I started thinking, I need to pray that they're not aborted.
They're not dead, mm-hmm. Right. They're right. So anyway, I think that's a big factor in this fact that all these kids are pro-life. But anyway, let's talk about some of the neat things that are going on out there.
Please tell us. Please tell us good things going on.
Joining us now from Philadelphia is Michael Markovich, and he has been on a campaign to go after a company called Stericycle. Hello, Michael.
Hi.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm blessed.
Tell us who Stericycle is and what they do.
Stericycle is the premier medical waste pickup service to the abortion industry. They service hundreds of Planned Parenthoods across the country, and all kinds of abortion mills across the country and potentially around the world. We're going after Stericycle because of this and trying to get them out of picking up at these facilities, because all that it's doing is helping them carry out their evil deeds. So that's the purpose of the project, is to stop and to halt these types of medical waste companies, to get them to wash their hands of doing business with the abortion mills. And Stericycle is the premier company doing this.
What are they picking up, and where are they taking it?
Well, through our investigation, we found that Stericycle is indeed picking up the aborted babies at these facilities across the country. We have been tracking them, and they also pick up, the needles and tools used to kill the children, and they'll take them to their independent incineration plants. They have about a dozen of these incineration plants across the country where they burn not only the needles that are used in these abortion quote-unquote procedures, but also the aborted babies themselves. So our project is really targeting this company, Stericycle, for its involvement in this Holocaust.
Now, you've recently had, and the reason we're having you on right now, you've recently had two pretty profound victories. Tell us about that.
Yes, we had two major truck leasing companies tell Stericycle not with our trucks, and that was Ryder Truck Leasing as well as Penske Truck Leasing. Penske was the first to pull out, and then Ryder. Now, what that means is that they lease all of these trucks to service their medical waste pickup routes. They're embossed with the Stericycle logo on them and everything, but these trucks are maintained by these truck leasing companies, and there's only several of these that are doing it. Ryder was one, and then of course Penske, and there's three others that we're aware of that we see showing up at the abortion facilities across the country. It's on the driver's side door. You'll see a little logo that'll tell you who's leasing them the truck. So we've been targeting them, and we have found that Stericycle has been, in some areas of the country, scrambling to find another truck to use to pick up at the facility. So that is really a victory when we had two major truck companies pull out and say, you can't use our trucks for that purpose. And we're seeing Ideal Lease, which is the third largest. They're a franchise version and they have many different affiliates across the country. We're starting to see some of those tell us they will not allow their trucks to be used for that purpose. So we're seeing that at work, and we're really thankful for those decisions.
Have you targeted the other rental facilities or rental truck agencies that are providing services for them?
Yes, we went after AIM National Lease. That's another one, as well as PAC Lease. So those are the only three remaining: is PAC Lease, Ideal Lease, and AIM National Lease. Those are the three companies that Stericycle uses for all of their trucks. And so we've been notifying them, and with Ideal Lease, because it is a franchise, those affiliates need to make their own decisions. And since there's hundreds of them, we've been going after the ones that we have found their trucks showing up at the abortion facilities.
Another question, Michael. Sure. Have you found that this group, Stericycle, are they just disposing of the aborted babies, or are they selling any parts to other third parties that may be interested?
Right. To our knowledge, they are just disposing of the aborted babies. We haven't come across any information that would suggest that Stericycle is selling them. I wouldn't be surprised to find that out at some point.
Well, Michael, keep us posted on how this is going, and congratulations on at least getting Penske and Ryder to back away. Obviously, those are probably the two biggest ones, I would think.
Yes, and Ideal Lease is the third, and we're independently making progress with the affiliates in that regard. It's going to take some time with them, but we're seeing them move out as well.
Well, thank you for what you're doing.
Yes.
Keep us.
You, Mark.
Let us know how things are going, and we'll get you back on if you have some more victories like this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Good day.
Michael, noticing from the notes here, the grand jury documents show that this was the group that was collecting the babies at the Gosnell House of Horrors.
Right. I mean, this is a big deal. And you know, it's just a good example of how the abortion issue touches so many things you wouldn't even think about. Ryder trucks. If I said, what's the relationship between Ryder trucks and abortion, before this, you'd have probably thought, what relationship?
That's why they're fighting so hard to maintain this practice in our culture, because it is a major money-making business.
For a lot of people. You know what? Again, it's like what we discovered when we were doing the research on Maafa 21. Slavery was something that supported the entire American economy. It just wasn't the southern plantation owners who made money off slavery. It was the insurance companies, it was the newspapers, it was the railroads. It supported our entire economy. And people didn't realize, I don't even think people at that time realized how widespread slavery was in our economic system. I think abortion's the same thing. It's the same exact deal. Well, another area we're having some victories in is right here in Texas. And joining us from Waco, the Waco Flash, John Pichata. Hello, John.
Hello, Mark.
How are you
doing? Good to be
doing?
with you.
Nice to have you with us, John. John has been a longtime activist down in the central Texas areas, particularly in Waco. And you guys have been going after this project of Planned Parenthood called Nobody's Fool. Tell everybody what that's about.
Well, Nobody's Fool is a program that's existed for 22 years in which they're promoting promiscuity to children. They call it comprehensive sex education. But each summer they have a morning program, one day a week, one day during the summer, where they bring in as many youngsters, grades 5 through 9, as they can, and they have various so-called teachers that get them into thinking about sexuality and thinking about how Planned Parenthood can be their ally when they became sexually active. And so it's part of the overall marketing program of Planned Parenthood. It's in the sex business, and they don't make any money off of chaste children.
That's right. That's a point we've tried to make many times, is that if you're going to become the nation's #1 abortion provider, and you understand, or profiteer is a better word, and you understand that at least a third of your income is going to come from minors, you got to have a lot of minors getting pregnant. You have a vested interest in your birth control contraception thing failing. You make money if it fails.
Right. And they're making money off of the sexually transmitted disease. That's just a whole vast industry. And so they're trying, it's to present their view, and at the worldwide, international level, the national level, the local affiliates, it's really quite disgusting.
Well, the good news is that because of the efforts that you guys have put in down there, their attendance at this thing appears to be plummeting.
Oh, it is in the tank. They claim as many as, if you go back about 10, 12 years, as many as 500, 600 youngsters attended this program. And this last summer, I think that it was probably didn't reach 100 youngsters going. So they're just going through the motions, and the program is sinking. And of course we hope we've had a hand in that, and of course we're challenging the sponsors. And as in your last segment, there are many affiliates of Planned Parenthood, and we want to make them pay. If they're going to support Planned Parenthood, then they're going to pay the price.
Yeah, I noticed.
John, I want to ask about these Girl Scouts. It looked like they got their fingers into the Girl Scouts for some reason.
Well, they sure did. They had a long-time alliance, really from the beginning in 1989 with the Nobody's Fool sex promotion program. The Girl Scouts were an ally, sponsoring it and soliciting young girls to attend it. And this is really where we started to be very proactive. In 2004, we decided we had enough of this, and we launched a boycott against the sales of Girl Scout cookies. And it just kind of became went viral, and it was a national story. And the parents of the Girl Scouts and the troops leaders became to know about this affiliation, and many of them were upset. And within 3 weeks of our launching the boycott, the board of the local Girl Scout council met and severed all ties with Planned Parenthood.
That's encouraging.
See, that's the way you do this thing.
So I can still buy Girl
so
Scout
that made
cookies?
us realize, I think there's more than we can do than sometimes we think.
Right.
We're upset about, this affiliation, But if we be creative about it, I think there are ways to shine the light, and when the light shines on these relationships, very often some good things happen.
Right, right. Well, John, you guys keep up the good work. Just like I told Michael, when you have more victories, be sure and let us know about it so we can bring you back on and encourage people, because a lot of times the only thing that people in the pro-life movement hear is what the secular media tells them. Well, the secular media is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the abortion industry. So the problem is, and this is the fundamental reason why we started LifeTalk in 1999, we cannot continue to get our information from our enemies. And that's what we were doing when we take the information from the secular media in this country, because they're not going to cover this stuff.
No, they're not. And we've used public demonstrations, and the people will see it.
Absolutely.
And the community will know.
John.
Keep after them, John.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Let me, this issue of the media, not telling everybody. Recently, this is something we didn't get to cover. 2,000 people protested Carhartt's abortion mill in Germantown, Maryland. Was that on the national media?
Never heard about it.
2,000.
2,000 pro-lifers.
That's a big group.
That's a big group. But the Occupy movement can get 30 or 40 disaffected, drug-addled leftist.
Wanting handouts.
And they get on national television. A good example of this, and you live in this area, and well, you do too. Are y'all aware that one of the Occupy guys was found dead here in Denton?
I did hear
Oh,
that.
did you? Okay.
I did hear that.
All right. How many people in the national media you think talked about that? This guy,
Lots.
a drug addict?
Yeah.
But if this had been a Tea Party deal, if this had been a pro-life event, every time there's a pro-life event, they act like it's a 4-day Klan rally or something. And if something like this happened, it would be national news. But this Occupy movement...
The Occupy movement, I found out about your person dying out here over the internet. The internet news really did it. It wasn't reported on the NFI.
It was a little more reported
Died
around
in
here.
connection with that movement.
Right. Now, there's another issue that's come up here that's I think is very interesting. As we all know, the Republican primary is going on, and everybody's claiming to be pro-life, and some of them, their commitment to the pro-life cause is minimal at best. But Newt Gingrich comes out here and makes a statement that is completely unsustainable, that life doesn't begin at the moment of conception, although he claims to be pro-life. It begins at the moment of implantation. And this is something that we've talked about on LifeTalk many, many times. This is an attempt by the abortion lobby to redefine pregnancy so that you can have basically abortions in that gap of time between conception and implantation and not call it an abortion. And this, I think this all goes back to federal funding. These things always go back to money. If you can solidify that this is not an abortion, then you can pay for it with Medicaid or Medicare money or whatever federal dollars they want to use.
I think people need to be reminded, as much as there might be people out there that love Newt Gingrich, he was in charge of a Congress that could have done something, and he didn't.
Right. But that goes to the level of commitment. And, we keep on, and I'm not saying we should support one person or support another person, but we keep on supporting.
This is significant. I commented on that very article on my Facebook page and said, look, this is a very dangerous definition of what life is.
Right.
And we need to be very careful about supporting someone who is attempting to redefine what life is
Where it begins.
casually and cavalier, as this man has attempted to do. Now, he has since recanted on that and changed his position, but
it's not just that it's cavalier. It's that it's backed up by no science.
No science whatsoever.
There's no science whatsoever that says that during that time after the baby is conceived, but before it attaches to the uterine wall, what? It's not there. It doesn't exist. What is it?
Nothing's happening. We know full well when conception occurs, things start happening immediately.
Well, think about it from this standpoint. It might be 48 hours. So let's say that a woman engages in a sexual activity. One of her eggs is fertilized, but not implanted yet. Okay. All right. So one of her eggs is fertilized. That new human life is created, but it doesn't attach for 2 days later. That means, by this definition, that she became pregnant at a time when she was not having sex. right? That's pretty amazing when you think about it, right? So, you can't, this is the problem that you get into when you start redefining when life, and this goes to the abortion issue. Oh, it begins when the baby's viable, or it begins at 3 months, or, oh yeah, I support abortion, legalized abortion up to 90 days, but after that, then it's a baby. Well, what happened on the 89th night at midnight that caused this? Once you drift away from the position that life begins at the moment of conception, then everything else is arbitrary. It's just you grab it out of thin air, just like this. But the problem that this tells me is that people who buy into this philosophy, like Gingrich was saying, is they don't have a basic concept of what the pro-life position is. They say, I'm pro-life, but they really don't have a concept of what that means.
It's political for him.
Right. It's political.
It has no meaning whatsoever.
For a lot of these
23
people, it's
chromosomes male, 23 chromosomes female.
All right.
When they come together, life.
That's a life. That's a human
Life.
That's right.
Simple as that.
That's exactly right. We'll be right back.
For almost 40 years, you've been told that the abortion issue is about choice and women's rights, reproductive freedom. But that's just marketing hype. And this explosive feature-length documentary proves it. It's called Maafa 21, and it's a gritty behind-the-scenes look at America's family planning establishment. Now, when you see their dirty little secrets and hidden motives dragged into the light, you'll finally know the real reason why abortion was legalized. But don't think this is about history. It's not. What you're going to see in this film is happening right here, and it's happening right now, with information that will absolutely take your breath away. Maafa 21 is going to challenge you, it's going to shock you, and it's going to make you angry. But when it's over, you will know things that America's politicians and power brokers never intended for you to know. And you will have seen things that the media is never going to show you. The fact is, this DVD is about to change the way you look at the battle over abortion. The cost is only $20, and you can order it on this website or by calling toll-free 1-800-800-LIFE. We'll pay for the shipping. So, place your order right now. It's time for you to know the truth about these people.
Welcome back. We've got a really interesting guest here in a minute, and we'll be getting to that in just a minute. But I want to go over a couple of things that we didn't get to earlier in the show. First off, I want to remind people about our violence report, the report that we've done on the number of women that are killed in this country because they refuse to have abortions. Another thing that the media is not going to talk about. They're more than willing to talk about some act of violence that might occur every 5 years by some pro-lifer. But this is happening daily. Daily. Women being raped in abortion clinics, women being killed because they refuse to go to abortion clinics. And we've got a report out on it now, and people need to be paying attention to that.
Out? Is it a book?
It's at the printer, or it's going to be at the printer next couple of days. We originally had planned to put it out last month, like we talked about, but I didn't want it to get buried in the holiday season. A lot of times you put things out in December, nobody pays attention to them. So we decided to hold it over until January. So by the time people get this, it should be available, and it'll certainly be online for people to read. It's staggering when you look at it. Well, you've read it, so you know it is unbelievable.
Know your enemies.
Yes. And I want to make a couple of points here, too, that we, for 2012, are going to be adding, I'm trying right now to recruit some new, at least 2, maybe 3 new employees for Life Dynamics, and one of them is going to be doing nothing but the Maafa 21 project because we think 2012 is going to be a watershed year for this project. We've already seen that Maafa 21 is a tool that is effective. We know it works, and now it's time to go to the next level. So I'm actively trying to recruit, and you guys I know are trying to help, and you've already sent me one young man I talked to, and so we're going to be hiring that one person and a couple more for some exciting projects that we're going to be doing in 2012. So anyway, we'll be talking more about that in coming months. I'm going to set this aside. We're going to be talking about Maafa 21 again in a minute. I want to go over a couple of things that we didn't get to earlier. You know, we often say that the abortion industry is in this country is completely out of touch with reality. I mean, these people have no clue. If you don't think that's true, and we give examples of this all the time, Planned Parenthood in New York has got an article on its website telling people, and this is, of course, past due now because Christmas and the holidays have already gone. They were telling people how to talk about abortion at the Christmas dinner table.
Oh, my goodness.
Giving them tips on how to bring it up, what you should talk about, what points you should be making.
Wait a minute, you have to list some of the things they say, and I got to hear this.
Basically,
wait, before you start, why do we need to bring it up at the Christmas dinner table?
I don't know. I'm not sure why you'd all be sitting around the Christmas dinner table and say, "Oh, by the way, let me tell you about baby killing." Yeah. Now, in baby killing, you know. But they give them, I don't have a list of all the things here, Johnny, but they just talk about how, this, it's a touchy subject and you've got to approach it carefully and respectfully and so forth. But here's how to talk about abortion at the Christmas dinner table. These people are so out of touch with reality. And baby killing is such an integral part of their lives for some reason.
Are they really? I mean, have we so been desensitized in America that we would even allow that kind of discussion to take place or someone to suggest to us that? I think there may be a condition within our culture that is permitting this kind of foolishness.
I don't know.
That's pure sickness. That's
speaking of baby Jesus is being celebrated during this time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's
I'm repulsed by the whole idea.
Now, talking about out of touch, we've covered here the last few months about the situation in New Jersey, where a lawsuit has been brought on behalf of some nurses who want to exercise their conscience rights and not participate in abortions at this New Jersey hospital. One of the women, and again, this goes to the fact that these people are so completely brain dead and out of touch with reality. One of these women said that one of the managers was kind of scolding her about being a participant in this about her participating in this lawsuit, saying that it was really not necessary because this nurse her last name was Vanoia, Mrs. Vanoia, said one of her managers told her not to worry about this because, quote, "You just have to catch the baby's head. Don't worry, it's already dead." Wow. And this is supposed to salve her conscience over participating in an abortion. Don't worry about it. We're not asking you to actually kill the baby. We just want you to catch the head when it comes out. The baby is already dead. But see, what I'm saying, Johnny, Stephan, is these people's minds are so seared and so screwed up that to them, this seems legitimate. Yeah, don't worry about it. All you're doing is catching the head of the baby. He's already dead. They don't see that as a big deal. That's how whacked out these people are.
That makes it okay.
And that's a good definition of what's happening with them. But it certainly goes to explaining the behavior of the Germans during Nazis' rule.
Right.
How they could kill and slaughter so many people and do it without a bit of consciousness at all.
Right. After a while, you just get numb to it, I guess.
Well, there was a nurse we heard once that said when she assisted in her first abortion, it took her breath.
Right.
And then, I was hoping who was telling me the story would say, and she quit and walked out, and no, it got easier with each one. She said that.
Right. Yeah, she said after a while, it's just like everything else we do around here, you get used to it. You think, well, wait a minute. When I remember that quote. I think it was from Magna Dennis's book, We Do Abortions Here, or Moments on Maple Avenue. We've got all those books here, and these are written by people who work at abortion clinics and what it's like. And she made that statement. The first time I saw him pull out the legs and arms of this little baby, it took my breath away. But after a while, I got used to it. You would think you could sit down with this woman and say, well, wait a minute. Why did it take your breath away? Let's go back to that point. Why did it take your breath away? And the reason is because you sat there and recognized that you were killing living human beings. That's why it took your breath away. Let's don't sugarcoat this.
It got easier with each paycheck or something. I don't know.
All right, we've got a very special guest. We're going to talk about the MAFA project here for a minute. Joining us from He's in Atlanta, Michigan. We didn't even know there was an Atlanta, Michigan, right? We thought it was just Atlanta, Georgia. But maybe that's just because we're Southerners. You know, you're a recovering Yankee. Did you know about Atlanta, Michigan?
I'm still in recovery.
You're still in recovery. Have you repented?
Not at all.
Okay.
The war of Yankee aggression.
Right. That's right. Joining us from Atlanta, Michigan is Rick Warswak. Is that right, Rick?
You got it right.
I got close. You're very kind. I know that the best I did was get close. These Polish names don't just roll off the Southern tongue too well.
That's right. That's right.
You're with The Call. Is that correct, with Lou Engle?
Yes, I was Lou Engle state coordinator for Michigan for The Call and lead a group called Transformation Michigan in our state.
Tell everybody that might not know who Lou Engle is and what The Call is. Give everybody just a short description of that.
Well, Lou Engle has a heart, of course, to galvanize the prayer movement in our nation. And he focuses on one main moral issue. There's a number of issues, but abortion is one of them. He feels, as I feel, that there is what you would call in Joel or in the Old Testament even, and there's like a curse on the land. It's all through the Bible about a blood curse. When you shed the lives of babies, it's the shedding of innocent blood. So what Lou tries to do is bring an awareness in young and old people through what they call the call gatherings, which not only go nationally but internationally now, and trying to make people aware of the challenge we are facing because we look the other way, for example, in abortion. There's a searing of the conscience, and we believe that prayer will help bring an awakening of the conscience to realize you're breaking the commandment of God, because life begins, at conception.
Well, you guys...
And so then what we do is pray, then we try to equip and mobilize the grassroots to awaken various urban and rural areas.
You guys draw enormous crowds. I mean, you just had an event in Detroit on the 11th of November in which you had almost 30,000 people, is my understanding. And
they say almost 30, but really it was near 40 because, media reports things. And but the interesting thing was this was a 24-hour gathering. This was not a 2-hour meeting. Right. This was a 24-hour prayer gathering, which dealt with a number of issues, which abortion was one of the main ones. And
we got involved because you had called about getting some office to hand out there, and you guys actually wound up buying 3,250, and that's just the start of the project. Now you've called me back, and you're going to be buying a lot more of them for future events. But you guys bought 3,250 MAFAs and showed the trailer on the Jumbotron. This thing was held at Ford's Field where the Detroit Lions play.
That's right, at Ford Field. You got to realize Detroit is predominantly African-American, 80 to 85%. And so in October, I had Lou Engle over my house because we were traveling, doing a city hop across the state, about the call and the prayer movement and what we're doing at Ford Field. And he sat in my living room. He didn't get up once. He watched MAFA 21 straight through with not one break. And he got up and he says, we have to get this for the call at Ford Field. And because I watched it a week earlier, somebody gave me a copy, or I got it off of one of your conference call we have with pro-life leaders. And I was shocked about the information and how poignant it was to end abortion, not only in the black community, but in America, and to take down Planned Parenthood, which we need to do.
Absolutely. Now, Stephan, you were at this event, were you not?
Yes, we were there with the National Black Pro-Life Coalition, myself, Dean Nelson, Arnold Colbreth, Alveda King, and we made a pitch to the Detroit clergy that they ought to be involved and engaged in trying to turn back this scourge in our community.
Right.
And I'm also in MAFA 21.
And you're in MAFA 21. Oh, you're the key player, right?
No,
that's what you told me. Without you, it wouldn't have worked, right?
I'm a second stringer in that.
Well, we've had a lot of, I don't know if I've told you this or not, Rick, but we've had a lot of responses from people who were there. You gave out over 3,000 of them at the event, but there were a lot of people who weren't able to get one, and they've called and bought them from us since then. And some of them have bought multiple copies to hand out. And again, you called the other day and said you guys want to continue this relationship and start handing them out at all these call events and getting them out all across Michigan in particular. But we've had several black pastors that have called that had seen it at the event. Some of them didn't get a copy, but some of you guys played the trailer up on the big jumbotron thing, and boy, we've gotten a good response from it. So this goes to what I was saying earlier about we think now we've laid the groundwork, and we've covered the first phase, if you will, of MAFA 29. Now for 2012, it's time to take it to the second level. And people like Rick and Lou Engle and people like that out there in the field can make this happen. And we are going to make it happen. But we're going to start doing our part better here at Life Dynamics, too. We now know we've got a tool that works.
And it works.
Could I interject something, Mark? If people could realize that if they could imagine themselves as circuit riders, and there's a poster stamp coming out about the circuit riders, the holiness movement back in the Great Awakening. And what happened is this is my role. I was at a large city ministerial association meeting this past week. I passed out MAFA 21 to every one of them. And I believe if we could just circuit ride, and this is what we plan to do in our state, get to every urban and rural area, get MAFA 21 out, and we believe there's circuit riders, just normal people who have a sphere of influence that they can impact. And I believe that this is the process that God wants us to utilize, because we are a mobilization, a type of network here. But prayer is the foundation of it, of course. But we have to get feet on the ground action. And this tool that you have produced is fantastic, and I am committed to it.
Well, I want to say how much I appreciate the work you guys are doing, because like I've said before, we can't be everywhere. We've produced the product, and we do the things that we can do, and Johnny is out there in the field, and you're out in the field, and people like Rick and Lou Engle are out in the field, and that's what we've got to have. It's like he said, we've got to have this circuit rider mentality to where we're going around and spreading this word.
Appreciate your work, Rick.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Rick, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much, and God bless all of you.
Well, thank you, sir. You too, and thanks for joining us. This is what we got to do. Absolutely. We got to have people like Rick and like...
That's encouraging.
It is.
With a positive note to end on.
Yes.
Right. You needed one, didn't you?
I did.
Right. You were beat down after that first segment this morning. Well, listen, thanks for filling in for Troy.
Yes.
My pleasure.
And like I said, we would maybe throw him out. We couldn't get rid of Johnny. He kept showing up.
Well, they can. But Mark, I was telling you, as we end though, Heritage Christian School. I was able to speak at that school a week ago. The principal at school, Dan Kistler, had showed MAFA 21 to those students. Wow. And to hear that prayer, hear it being played in a Christian school, this is has some real possibilities, and this is without you having the staff on board yet.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have the staff on board, but we're going to find the right person and put them on this job, and they're going to walk through that front door in our office every day and say, my job is to get MAFA 21 out as far as wide as I can today, and that's my job tomorrow, and that's my job the next day. Was this Christian school, was it predominantly black school?
Predominantly white, but they had a number of blacks, and the blacks made their presence known when I was there.
Really?
Yes, they did. But these students were on fire. I told Pastor Broden, I said, I have hope for this nation. 2012 is a key year for us.
Absolutely.
Our nation is going to crumble or fall based on what we can pull off in this year. It really is. I was inspired because I know the book of Daniel. And in the book of Daniel, without mom and dad being around, those three Hebrew boys, they get in there with Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They say, we're not going to bow to king's wine, king's meat. They didn't bow. They ended up in the lion's den in the fiery furnace. The mom and dad were either dead in prison, and in a land that was trying to teach them to be heathens, they refused to bow. And when I saw at that Christian school with students that refused to bow, they came up to me and they said, Pastor Honor, we're not just going to vote for elected leaders when I get older. We're going to run.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I saw a different mentality, and I realized, oh, my, if we can't pull off 2012, there is a generation. This younger generation is so on fire, so committed. I think they could pull it off even if we lose. I hope we don't lose. But I'm saying if we don't do it right, we'll win in the end. But I don't want to be waiting for the end for things. You know what I'm saying?
When I look at these kids between the ages of, say, 12 and 30, 32, you got to be, you look at them, you got to be encouraged and say, this is the future of the Christian community, the pro-life movement in America, that we've got a good future. But it's up to us to lay a good groundwork that they can actually build upon.
And the thing about MAFA 21, we're really learning is this thing is going across races.
Right. Yeah.
It was, You know, I zero in on the black community with it, but I'm being honest with you. Everybody that watches this, they get a good understanding of what's going down.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys, and thank you for filling in.
My pleasure.
And
Ask me again.
Well, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Well, that's all the time we have. Until next month, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how this killing stops. We'll see you in February.